Hey, what's up?
Hey everyone.
Krisna here, Jedi Steve. And we want to talk about giving you skills for a changing world.
So much is changing, it seems, lately. So yeah, it's a good time to talk about it.
Think of the last 15, 20 years, 5 years, last 5 days of what it would have been like if you hadn't developed wisdom and skills.
Yeah.
Could you see yourself going in a circle just doing the same stuff over and over? What actually still happens.
For sure.
It's probably the spiral example, but it would be spiral staying here instead of spiral going up. Do you think so?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, right? That's kind of the way that we grow in general, right? I'm thinking about plants right now. That sometimes, we look at a plant growing and we think like, oh, it just sprouts up. But really, if you take a time lapse, they grow in spirals like this. It's really interesting.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. So yeah.
So I want to talk about something else. When we were children, there used to be a game. Actually, the game still exists. It's called Chutes and Ladders. Chutes are what's a slide?
Like a slide.
Like a slide. And ladders, you climb up. So you roll the dice. And if it's on 2, then you go 2 steps. And if it's a ladder, you go up. If it's a chute, you go down. And I think I talked to somebody in India, and it's snakes and ladders in India.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, for sure. So going back to that, I believe, even though we use the spiral analogy, I believe we go up a lot of times when we develop skills, wisdom, so we're not continuing to make the same mistakes over and over again. Failure and how we manage our failure isn't failure if we're able to make the adjustments.
I really believe failure is never failure.
But
exactly. We'll go into that.
For me, because I'm so hard-headed, I have to make a hard line in the sand and say that. Or I would just keep on doing the same stuff over and over again.
Sure, yeah.
So, if I can, how did you come across being on a different time from the traditional time or seasons of the calendar? How come you decided to go on to that? Was there something is there a reason of temporary failure that came to you to all of a sudden go off of that?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like a singular moment. It was a build-up of moments where through my journey of wanting to discover why were people unwell, why did I feel unwell, and connecting it back to like feeling connected, like feeling rooted in something bigger than oneself. It brought me to all of the impact that colonialization and, assimilation or the changing of cultures away from like our connection to nature and natural systems had. And in that journey, I started noticing that back then I was working a 9 to 5, and like getting up super early, traversing traffic, doing your 8 hours, 9 hours, and then going in traffic again, and all of that stuff, and really just feeling like I was not well. Like there was no time for me to rest. There was no time for reflection. There was no, I was in a loop. And I started wanting to kind of explore heritage knowledge. At that time, I wasn't calling it Indigenous. That came more recent, but just wanting to explore that more. And I remember sitting with this individual who was very connected to their spiritualism, and they said something like, well, what is your cycle? And that was a very powerful question for me, because then I started thinking about, what is my cycle? Well, I don't freaking know. Like, what are you talking about? Like, are you talking about my menstrual cycle? Like, what are you talking about? What do you mean cycle? I had never, ever thought of that. Why? Because that knowledge that I'm part of nature had been taken away from me through, you know, assimilation, acculturation, and I had not gotten to that point where I was really feeling myself in connection to nature. I felt very disconnected. So then it prompted me to really think about the way in which living in the current system of like the time for work, you do it from this time to this time, and everyone's doing it at the same time, you know, or these different seasons that we would practice, and that how some of them didn't align with my own cycle. So it prompted me to really start paying attention to my own cycle. And some years after that, that's when I started kind of merging away from that like 9-to-5 world, because I realized that I needed more chunks of time for rest. Like a weekend to rest just was not enough. I needed a lot longer than that to like rest, regroup, and then be able to go back and to be with people and to do all the things that I loved. And as I moved and became more of an entrepreneur and made my own schedule and did that, and I learned, oh, I'm in alignment with nature. In the winter time, I want to rest more. I'm not going out there and doing a bunch of stuff. I'm more in rest. And in spring, I get a bunch of energy. I start planning. And in summer, I'm out there with the people doing all the things. And then again, in fall, here we go with the cycles. I noticed that my natural cycle was big spurts of energy for months and then rest. And then big spurts of energy for giving out and then rest. And I learned that was my cycle. And not until I slowed down and reflected about that did I even realize, like, oh wow, like I was in this loop and it was causing me so much dis-ease and lack of wellness. And that was my journey that helped me find the Maya calendar and then start switching up the way that I would use time or look at time.
Yeah, for sure. There's lots of lies that they sell us. There's lots of lies that they sell us. One of the things, and you can potentially add some things to this. I used to say if I wanted to control the people, say I was somebody in there, I would use religion, time, and language. Those are the three things. Anything you would add to that?
In terms of?
Just controlling the people. I mean, obviously we don't want to do that, but...
Yeah. What are some of the systems? I mean, I think those are really, really good ones, you know? Like, what are the ways? And really, I feel like time is one of the biggest things that are creating a lot of distortions for people, for sure. Yeah, because it's created at that. So what I was able to do is I was able to discover a lot of different things on my own, and also seeing some examples in mainstream. So for instance, and some of the things I discovered first, and then I found somebody else that did it after. So I came up with the concept that I would make one decision that would make 1,000 decisions. Ooh. So when I go to get tea in the morning, I go coffee or tea of your choice. So I leave it up to the person at the counter. And two things I'm doing that is I'm because they're always studying all those things, and I'm helping them I'm giving up control and helping them be part of the creation of my day. Also, I'm not wasting energy on low vibrating decisions. I frame that in that way, but that's what Steve Jobs, if you look, he always wore the same thing. And I'm not anything like Steve Jobs. I mean, I would say we're visionaries. That would be the closest thing to the situation. But that was something, but I do have respect for him, and he has respect for me when I talk to him at night when I'm sleeping. But Steve Jobs was able to just wear that same thing. So what I do is, because a lot of people say, oh, it's just another decision, but that other decision leads to other decisions, and I believe every time we make a decision we suffer.
So if we're doing it, worrying about our food and all these different things over and over again, there's just thousands of decisions that are sucking a lot of energy out of us. So we're not having time for for holding space for other people that are important to us. We're not having the energy for that because we're countless. Okay, what type of ice cream do I want? Da 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 da. I know when I'm in it, and it sounds very boring, but you gotta have some boring things in your life to make room for excitement. So I know if I'm in certain areas, I've opened it up a little. But if I'm in certain areas, then I eat at certain restaurants in San Diego. I mean, I do Lyft during the day, so I don't know what area I'm going to be in. So I'm not going to new places. I'm usually picking a lot of places that will be in there. Some are only in certain areas. What I'm doing, and now as I explain it, it seems a lot, and it seems like it's taking up this much space, but it's only taking up this much space. Like if we look at it from a computer analogy, it's like only taking up this much space, and it's in autopilot that I'm making that one decision that's covering the thousands of decisions. And that gave me the space to be able to make room for what I truly cared about and what my purpose is and what I wanted to do, be, and have in this world.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that when we are in survival mode, we're just surviving. And we are so filled with so much fear and worry that like every micro thing becomes like extraordinarily highlighted, which then can distract us from so many other things that are going on in our life that are really important to us, but we can't even go there with our thoughts. And yeah, I really appreciate your examples on the way that you kind of organize your time and the way that one decision will help ease up your choice making for your day and how you find yourself having more space for meaningful things in your day.
It allows me to be truly present.
Yeah, which is so key and crucial, especially when we're thinking about a changing world. You know, like you're worried about what you're going to eat or what happened yesterday. How can you be present and really like take advantage of all the things that are changing in your current moment of now, for sure.
For sure.